Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Transgender Show. I'm your host, Emily. Tonight, I'm very excited to welcome to the show Shannon Mcdill. Shannon came into the Transverse when we brought Billy over and her Queer and Teen Kitchen show, and I'm sure you've seen her in the chat either here or in the Instagram. Shannon, a New Jersey native, is a graduate of Rutgers University with a concentration in historic preservation and political science. She's a digital content creator with focusing on gender, race, and social justice. With her wife, Rachel, she co-hosts the podcast Our Life in Transition. You can also find her every week boosting transition posts from other trans creators on Instagram, all while proclaiming, "It's Tuesday." Everyone, welcome to the show, Shannon. Hi, love.
Hello. Hello again.
Yes, hello again. Got the intro better, so this was a better take anyways.
That time you nailed it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here and for being willing to come on the show and actually fill in kind of last minute.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Always good to have friends of friends of the network, friends of all the good stuff here. I mean, I think there are a ton of people in chat right now, and I think it's because so many people know you. Stacy Saya is here, and I thought it was awesome because we just talked about her and her Friday Night Lights group. No, it's not what it is. Is it? Yeah, whatever. Jess is here. Midvani. Hello to everybody. Thank you all so much for coming. Let's go ahead and jump in.
Sure.
Getting it right on the table there. How do you identify?
I am a trans woman. My pronouns are she, her, and yeah.
Awesome. Easy peasy. The first question that I like to start with as we get into your story, my favorite one, how did you choose your name?
I'm very boring. My name is actually the female name that my mom picked out. And I always knew what it was. My mom had two names. Both of them started with an S, and both of them were either the male or female version of Patricia after my grandmother. And that's it. It's the name that has always been my backup name, and it's always kind of felt like my name. When we were trying to pick out names for our daughter, it came up, and I got very defensive for some reason. Didn't know why at the time. Figured it out, but yeah, I was like, no, that's my name. It's always been my name. So, yeah, it was very easy to just go, yeah, it's Shannon now. Okay.
I always love that when you're able to pay homage to your family, you know, what your parents had chosen for you. I think it can make the transitions a little bit easier for them to accept. And I love that you always knew what it was and you kind of always had that in the back of your mind. Do you have any recollection from your youth of when that name resonated with you as in like, that should be my real name?
Much, because to be honest, growing up, everybody called me like everything except my old name. Because my old name, it's not very complicated to pronounce. I'm not going to tell anybody what it is, but it looks similar to other names. So I got all kinds of random different things, which was not my name. But my family had a litany of nicknames. I thought of making a shirt one time because there were like 20 different things that people called me. So, I never really thought about it so much growing up. And it was just kind of like, okay, whatever. This is what my legal name is, I guess. But it didn't bother me.
Okay.
It was a nice name, but it just stopped fitting kind of like a worn out pair of pants. So,
I love that nobody could get it right anyway, so it was just like it was easy to let it go.
Yeah, which I thought that once I changed my name, like Shannon's not complicated, and for some reason I keep getting Sharon. I'm like, where did you get Sharon from? There's no Sharons here. Two N's in the middle. I don't. Okay, but I thought the war was over, but it's not.
So when did you first realize that you were a transgender? When did that term specifically apply to you?
the term specifically, um, about let me do the math. About 2016, the other shoe kind of dropped.
Hmm.
Um, and I had, um, you know, those feelings of like, what is going on? I had, beforehand cross dressed,
Hmm.
but, you know, I didn't have the terms for it. And then, when it became more common for people to understand, kind of what this experience is called and what, what it is, then at some point I was like, "Oh, wait a oh, yeah, okay, that's what that was. Okay. Yeah, that's what that feeling is. That makes sense."
So when you got to that point and you've had a term, a label for that feeling, what were you able to look back on your youth and kind of trace back? What were some of those breadcrumbs that were there that led to that? Once you look back, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I see it now.
Um, there were lots of little things, like, I mean, I had moments that thinking back, kind of, being a little kid and, trying to figure out what this gangly body of mine was doing. I was, something didn't feel right. Um, but then also I very much used to get well, I wasn't getting misgendered because they were correct, but people used to think that I was a girl when I was little, and they would meet me and, I looked out, I've got nice eyelashes and dimples, and they were like, "Oh, your daughter's so cute." My parents would put me in the most boyish looking clothes, but just something about how I was carrying myself, they were like, "Oh, this is clearly your daughter." And they would say that to me, and I'd be like, I'm not supposed to say yes to that, but it doesn't necessarily feel weird." Um, and, by the time I got older, I used to joke that I was all of my, I was everybody's straight gay best friend, 'cause, you know, according to everybody else, like, I was like a gay best friend, but, you know, I like girls, so clearly, I was just, I was one of the nice guys, and, I got told that a lot, that you're one of the nice ones, and then I felt very bad when I had to let everybody down because I wasn't one of them at all. So,
Sorry, not a guy at all.
no, but so there were lots of little things like that that, in looking back, made a lot of sense, where at the time, it was just they were just quirks, but no, it's in hindsight, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, no, those were clues. I'm just a really bad detective."
I, really bad detective. I love that. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah. A lot of us who are trans really are. It takes us a very long time to take the evidence and put it together to get to a conclusion that actually makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
I mean, it helps when you get to the point of where you're actively looking and asking the questions and putting the pieces together instead of pushing them all aside and trying to ignore them and forget that they're there. I do love the fact that as a young child, your feminine side just exuded from you so much that like that's what came forth, and everybody was misgendering you. I love that.
when I
Or
finally
correctly
came
gender.
out, I had multiple people go, "Oh, well, that tracks." I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Oh, well, when you first brought Rachel home, when you first brought her and said, 'Hey, this is my girlfriend,' we were all like, 'Oh, we thought you were gay.'" "Okay, sure." I'm like, "Oh, oh, okay." But, I said that to my wife too. I was like, "Did I read that way to you?" She's like, "Kind of." "Yeah." Everybody were like, "No, no, you're not," but this is what they were saying. It just took I was probably the last person to figure it out, to be perfectly honest.
So then when you come out as trans, and we'll get into some of the details in a minute,
Mhm.
but when you came out at first, was there sort of like is it one of those situations where like nobody was really that surprised?
Um, I don't think anybody was really surprised. There were, a handful of people um, who didn't take it well,
Mhm.
but for the most part, everybody just went, okay, and just kept it moving. But yeah, nobody really seemed shocked. Um, people were like, this is what's, you sure? Yeah, okay. But yeah, nobody really seemed terribly surprised.
You mentioned backstage that your coming out publicly was via YouTube for your
Yes.
family and friends and things like that. How did you handle that? How did you approach coming out to that group? Was it more individual, or how did you approach
Um,
that?
yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, my wife was the first person I came out to. And um, like I said, I had cross dressed in the past. So, right after we got married, I had um what I described to people before as a bout of transness. Um, which was, she was working down here where we live now, and I was still taking summer classes, and it was really the first time in my life that I was just like nobody was with me at home. I was by myself.
Hmm.
I had time to really process, and within like I don't know a couple weeks, like I had several dresses, and I had a wig, and then I did the normal like, okay, well that was fun. Let me throw this all out now. That was a weird little fluke that I did. Like, and at some point, I told her about that, and her first question was, "Well, does that mean you're gay or you want to divorce me?" I'm like, "Oh no, no, it was just I don't know what that was, but it's over." It wasn't over, obviously, and that was always still in the back of my mind because something about that felt very right.
Yeah. Well, I love that what Amy pointed out in the chat. Astro Amy pointed out. Well,
Yeah,
technically, yeah, you are gay.
I am.
So.
Uh, it more so by the day, apparently, but I and we say this in the intro to our show too, and on the podcast that um you know, 10 years after we got married, I came out, and it was literally like it was just a decade of me trying really hard to be as manly as possible, and it just not working. Um, but so, she actually, I wound up coming out to her not meaning to,
Oh,
um, because, I was, she came home from work, and, um, I was, heading to the bathroom, and she was like, "Whose underpants are those? Are those mine?" I'm like, "Oh, no, those are mine." Yeah. Remember that thing? That didn't go away. And so, at first I came out to her as gender fluid. I was really trying to compromise because I was, scared. And it took a little while to come to terms. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not non-binary, sorry. Um, but then with everybody else, I went to therapy, and really worked on dealing with that fear of I don't know how everybody's going to react. And um I slowly started coming out to what I described as soft targets. I was very tactical about it. I was
very
like,
nice.
okay,
I love
well,
that.
let me talk to one of my best friends. He's not gonna have a problem. I talked to him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, well, okay, well, I'm gender fluid." I'm like, "Oh, see, okay." And he was like, "Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to come out to you." I'm like, "Great, so I'm glad we've done this." And then I didn't know how to come out to my brother, and my therapist said, "Well, why don't you write him a letter and see how would you like, what would you say to him?" And I wrote the letter, and we went over it, and she was like, "Yeah, that sounds like, why don't you try saying that to him?" I was like, "That's a good idea." So I sent him an email because I was afraid to talk to anybody, in person because I
Yeah.
was really just nervous about rejection. And so I sent him a letter, and he was like, "I saw you 2 weeks ago. Why didn't you tell me?" I'm like, "Well." we were busy. It was a family event. That wasn't the time. And he was like, okay, whatever. And, you know, after having a couple of people that I'm like, okay, that went well. Then I did the same thing, tweaked it, and sent the same letter to my really close family and my really close friends. And for the most part, it was good. That was, I had those couple of people that I had a little bit of a negative reaction, and I haven't spoken to them since.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, everybody seemed fine, and they were like, okay. They weren't shocked, obviously, because they all thought something was going on since I was a little kid anyway. And so, and after I was dealing with the people that I was worried about losing in my life, then I was like, okay, well, that was all easy. I can't send everybody an email, so I just made a YouTube video. And the YouTube video, it was Christmas time, so I had a nice, setting. I had a nice sparkly Christmas tree. Everything was pretty. I had good music, and then I just came in. I sat down and said, took a sip of water. So yeah, I'm trans. Um, and and then explain what that meant, and that was it. And I sent that out on Facebook. I made a little snippet and put it on Instagram, and I called it a day and said, okay. Some people didn't see that, and they were a little perplexed like a couple months later when they were like, wait, what's going on? And even my brother, I talked to him today, and he said that every once in a while people will be like, so how's your brother doing? Oh, my sister. No, your brother. Like, no, my sister. Yeah, she transitioned a while ago, and they're like, oh, okay, you're okay with that? Yeah, well, I just said she's my sister, right? And
I love it.
yeah. So I've been fortunate in that, for the most part, most of the people in my life haven't had a problem. Not everybody gets it, but they don't have a problem per se. But there's always a lot of questions, especially when I haven't seen somebody in a while.
Yeah.
I become the little trans encyclopedia. But yeah, so fortunately, I've haven't had too many people that I've had a falling out about it. A couple here and there,
Mm-hmm.
some closer than others, but yeah, everybody's kind of rolled with it for the most part because I was the last one to know. So
Yeah. We have a comment in chat that says you have some really good family, and I think it's from a familiar name here. The last name I'm seeing here is McDill. Looks like Ray McDill.
Yeah, that would be the other Mrs. McDill.
Ah,
Technically, Mrs. McDill Prime. She was technically Mrs. McDill first. So
there you go. This is McDill Prime. Ah,
yeah.
you have so many great terms. I love it. Just for that alone, soft targets for the easy people to come out to. We're gonna use the heck out of that. I love that very much.
Please, it's my gift to you. Enjoy.
Your true gift to the community. And on that note, I'm kind of curious: is that original video coming out? Is that still available on your YouTube?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pinned to my YouTube. If you go on there, yeah, that's one of the first things you'll see.
Wow. And for context, again, how long ago was that?
So my egg exploded altogether in just after Halloween in 2016. And that video was the next year in the middle of December. That's the other thing too, is I made it real hard for people to really be mad because it was right before Christmas. So it's just, like you got a lot going on. You got plans and parties and things going on. Just by the way, I'm trans. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't, I just kind of threw it out there at a very random time. But yeah, so it was the end of 2017. And I mean, most of that was just, having spent a year processing it myself and also with Rachel, and then you know, getting over my fears of coming out to people, and it was just like, okay, well, I'm not waiting any longer. It's been a year, and yeah, so it's weird that it's been that long. Honestly. It feels like yesterday, but it's been a very long time now.
Yeah, 2016. Wait, you said so it was December of 2017 when that came out?
2017 when I
That
finally
video
came out to
dropped?
people. Yeah,
Nice. No, I love that as a quick and easy way to just kind of get it out there. And then, you don't have to write the targeted email to everybody. You can
mhm,
just go ahead and send them a link. You can text it, tweet
exactly,
it, whatever, and just get it out there.
exactly. And
Nice.
honestly, and part of it, I don't know if it was just being, protecting myself or just, being scared. Which I don't know, maybe they're one and the same, but I was just like, listen, if they're mad, I don't have to deal with it right away. They can leave a nasty comment, which I can delete. But, if they're mad about it, then, I don't have to deal with them face to face and, be upset. I'll read their comment and be mad about it alone and maybe send them a very nice reply, and then that's about it. Um, so yeah, it was easy.
I like that. Just
Yeah.
here's my note. Just go ahead and scream into the void all you want, whatever. And if I feel like reading your comment, I will. Probably won't respond.
My last email, I'm a girl. Yeah, that's it.
So, ooh, nice. Danny just earned a 75,000 bits badge. Wow. That's a lot of bits
Yeah.
given. Thank you so much. So, Shy had asked, and we were pretty much going to get there, but, actually, I want to ask one question before that. You mentioned that your egg just sort of exploded in 2016. What was the main catalyst for that? You'd had this cross-dressing episode, and as soon as that was over, you just kind of threw everything away. My God, I remember those times where it was like
Mhm.
this crazy intense urge, and you did something impulsive, and then you're like, wow, I don't feel like that at all. And so, yeah, that's all got to go. Tangent there, but so yeah, what was it eventually that was that egg cracking catalyst?
Jealousy over Rachel's Wonder Woman costume for Halloween. And that's what it was. I went as another comic book character. It was a very good costume. I went as Hugo Strange. My head was shaved. That was the last time I had a beard. It was a perfect costume. And the entire night I was like, I really, but she has shorter hair and she needed a wig for that costume. And she went to work on Monday and she left the wig laying around. And I said, nobody's here. Let me try that whole thing again. I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Yeah. So
Yeah, I had that
yeah, it was the course of a weekend. Just everything fell apart.
the Halloween
Or came
weekend.
together.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I had that
Yeah.
that moment where something kind of cracked. I guess it was the
Mhm.
egg where it's just like, wait a second, am I attracted to her or jealous of her?
I That's a complicated question.
Yeah,
It's always a complicated question, but yeah.
that brings up a lot, and yeah, there's some tough thinking to be had after that. That's for sure.
Yeah. Mhm.
So then, as Shai asked, how did you specifically come out to your wife? What was that process like? And how did some of those initial conversations go? You all are still together. You've had a podcast together. You have a kid together. Yeah, how did that that process go for you?
It was, obviously that we had talked about, me dressing right when we first got married. Um, Pardon. And then she stumbled across, you know, um my new clothes that I had purchased the one day and asked if they were hers, and I said, "No, they're mine." And her reaction at first was, "Okay, I guess we need to talk about that." And I said, "Yeah, give me a minute." And I came out and sat down on the sofa and we had a conversation, and that's, I was like I said, I was compromising, and it's like, I think I'm gender fluid." And
Mhm.
she's like, "That makes sense. Okay." And, we had an entire year before I came out to everybody else of dealing with, you know, our different levels of acceptance, anger, compromising, um, and, it was a process. And, I don't think that in a relationship, a lot of people with this experience don't wind up having an argument at some point, and we had our fair share of arguments and discussions, and, um, we took it kind of day by day for that entire year. Um, I went to therapy, she went to therapy, we went to marriage counseling to try to figure it out, and, you know, by the time that I finally came out, we had a schedule, we were kind of on the same page about it, and, the way that she always put it was, "Well, this is my person, and this is my person regardless of, um, what her gender is, regardless of whether we're married or not, she's my person, and nothing about that is going to change. And what the form of our relationship is and what, um, her gender is kind of separate from, you know, who we are as, a team." And, she's my best friend, I'm her best friend, I think, unless she's changed her mind. Um, um, let us know in the comments. I don't know, Rachel, am I still your best friend? Um, but, I know maybe the Munchkin has taken that. But, uh, yeah. So it was a process, but, um, it just a lot of talking.
Mhm.
Um, which I can be a talkative person, but I don't like to, um, I don't like to be, uh, questioned about my feelings.
Yeah.
Um,
I struggled a lot with
uh,
that too, especially since at that in that period. Well, actually, I was having the conversations long before I kind of before my egg was really fully cracked. So a lot of it for me was trying to have a conversation and answer questions without having the answers myself. Was there
right.
some of that for you? Was there some help in the fact that the two of you got to answer those questions together?
Yeah, and like I said, I compromised for a while. Um, and I for a good probably 6 months of that year, I was like, "I'm gender fluid." And, I even actually I still had a nice little cute little gender fluid necklace on in my coming out video. I don't know why I was still wearing it because at some point, like a few months down the line, uh, it was very clear because, like, unless it was a situation where I'm not out yet, I'm leaving the house, and I can't present authentically yet outside of the house,
Mhm.
um, I was just me all the time. Um, my hair hadn't grown out, so I was wearing a terrible wig at the time, but, other than that, it was just me every day here at home. And at some point, Rachel was kinda quiet, and she just said, "You're not really gender fluid, are you?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm not." So, honestly, she was the first person that said, "No, you're not. You're going all the way to the other side, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." And yeah, and it took a while for me to even say it. I agreed with her when she said that, but it wasn't for, a couple 3 more months in therapy that I finally said to my therapist, "Yeah, I'm trans." And, you know, then of course, as soon as I did that, then I'm like, okay, we got to hurry up. We got to write letters. We got to, make YouTube videos. And I've gotten to acceptance. Let's move on. Everybody else get with the program. I have accepted it. All of you have to too. Um,
I love that. You're just like, okay, this is what it is. Let's go. Let's
yeah,
just move.
which I guess was,
Boy.
maybe surprising, because I'm one of those people that like I'm an ent. For all of our Lord of the Rings fans out there, uh, I it takes if I have something to say, it takes me a long time to say it. I think for a long time, but once I make a decision, the choice is made and we're moving on. Um, so I hem and haw for a long time, but once I figure out where I wanted to be, where I needed to be, then I wasn't waiting around anymore.
Interesting. I find a way to second guess myself throughout the whole process and long after.
Yeah, no, I mean I still second guess myself, but but the choice is made. So,
It is what it is. Let's go.
but
I love it.
yeah.
So, did you have anybody in that period when you were coming out that supported you that you weren't expecting, or supported you in a way that you weren't expecting?
Um, hmm, not really. Um, I mean, I guess I did have that one friend too. I came out to, and their response was to undercut my moment by coming out to me. But um, you know, not really. And uh, for many, many months until I really started sending those emails and making my videos and coming out to the people closer to me, um, a lot of my support was my wife, my therapist, and then just support groups on Facebook.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, I lucked out in that, like, I found some very supportive people with good advice and, you know, a nice, healthy, and robust caring section in the support groups. Um, and I still have some of my good friends are from that group. I don't think any of us are active in there anymore, but but um, yeah, we message each other still. I talked to one of them the other day. So, but I didn't really have anybody that kind of shocked me because I didn't
Mhm.
come out to anybody for a long time except for Rachel. So,
So let's jump to the tough question that we talked about in the pre-interview, the
yeah.
ethereal one, the big picture. What does transition look like for you?
Um. See, I said I was going to steal your answer, and now I forgot what it was. Um.
Nice.
You know, for me, it's just transition for me is authenticity. It's being myself. It's um finding the truth of who I am and doing that as unapologetically as I can. Um, like I said, it takes me a long time to make a decision, but when I do make a decision, that's because it feels right to me.
Mhm.
Um, and that's kind of how transition is. It took me 33 years to figure out what was going on. It took me 33 years to understand all what was going on with me, understand myself, and put together all those little weird feelings that I had. And transition is waking up and knowing who I am and moving through the world as that person as honestly as I possibly can.
Mhm. And how much did having that really supportive partner that said, "You're my person. I'm going to stick with you through this." How much did that help in that? What did that mean for you in that situation?
Everything. Um if if she had reacted very negatively, I don't know what I would have done with myself. Um, and when, like I said, I wasn't ready to come out to her when she stumbled across me and my little clothing purchases. I so you know when she was like, "What's going on?" My heart sank, and I was terrified. I was like, "Okay, well, this is the end of everything. My life is over now. I don't know what I'm going to do." Um, uh, and her saying, "Okay, we're gonna figure this out," and you know, her accepting me and accepting who I was, regardless of what that meant for us, but being there and being supportive of me and who I am was uh, crucial because without that support, I don't know that I would have, been able to have the strength and courage to tell everybody else. Because I spent an entire year um, being scared and nervous and compromising and crying um, and it would have been extraordinarily hard for me to move on from that. And yeah, it's see, I told you before, like I don't like thinking about my emotions and talking about them, but yeah, um, that meant everything.
Well, you're not gonna like the next question, then. Diving a little bit deeper into that, what were some of the key fears that you had as you looked towards transition, looked towards coming out, and
Mhm.
just basically went along your journey? And how did you overcome those?
Um, One of my biggest fears, um, because I found myself in a weird position, um, just physically. After we got married, we wound up kind of moving further away from everybody. We're very close to her family, and by close I mean like they're next door. Um, um, but all of my family is at minimum on the other side of the state. Um, and um, my mom had passed away in 2014, and it was like the two supportive people that I could always count on is Rachel and my mom. And so, you know, and secondarily to that, my brother and other people who I'm like, you got my back, right? Um, but I was scared how Rachel was going to react. I was pretty sure my mom would have been fine. She would have had a lot of questions, but she wasn't around anymore. So not having anybody that I was sure I could fall back on, um, was scary, and I was terrified that in coming out, I would lose whoever I had left, and I was very much in a place where um, I felt like I had lost a lot recently, and so I was afraid of really losing anything else. Um, but you know, it took a lot of support from her to say they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay.
Mhm.
Your brother loves you. Your brother's going to be fine. Um, and it's that's how I came. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. He is a soft target. It'll be fine. But I was scared of losing a lot of people and just not knowing what I was going to do with myself. If everything went badly.
So being someone who had, you made your decision and you realized, okay, the decision's made, let's go.
Mhm.
Did you have like a full plan laid out of the steps for your transition, and then you're talking with your wife and trying to kind of figure that out
Mhm.
together. So was there much of a plan, and have your goals shifted as you've moved through your transition? As far as like
Hmm.
what's important to you and what's
Yeah.
on the table, what's not versus your initial ideals.
I had kind of sitting in that period of just being afraid. I kind of got stuck for a while, even in trying to figure out where to go next. Um, and it took a lot of time speaking with my therapist and working with Rachel to go, okay, you need to make a plan, you need to make a list, you need to think strategically about this because I was just kind of running around like a chicken with my head cut off for a while, just going like, I want to come out, but I don't know what to do. I'm very panicked, and um, so yeah, I kind of at a certain point, I said, okay, what do I want to do? What are the steps to go forward? Like, okay, I need to come out to people. I need to figure out what I'm doing with my name. If I'm changing my name, how do I go about changing my name? How do I go about um, doing the practical things to move forward? Um, and then in that plan, it's like, okay, well, where do I go to get um, medical help? Who do I talk to? What do I want to do? What do I want to start taking HRT? If so, what kind? How does that work?
Hmm.
Um, and um, when I'm stressed, I'm really bad at researching. And I'm really bad at taking people's help. Rachel actually went to school to be a research librarian, so she's very good at um, at researching, and I'm very bad at accepting help. Um, so she would offer, I can look these things up for you. I'm like, but I got to do it myself. And then she was like, okay, did you look that up yet? Um, so eventually I did accept her help. And also in talking to my therapist, then, she didn't necessarily deal with trans patients regularly, but, she had some good resources to direct me to start dealing with some of these things. Um, and so, right around the time that I came out, I went to the Mazzoni Center for the first time in Philly. Um, talked to a doctor, talked to them about how medical transition works, what are my options.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, as far as things changing over time, I guess when I first came out, I was like, I'm gung ho. Figure out, I'm gonna change my name, get an HRT, and then, okay, let's list the surgeries that I want. And since that, I haven't had any surgeries. Um, and I went for consults, and then at some point, started going down the process and going, I don't know if this is what I want. I don't know if this is what I want. This is the team I want to work with.
Hmm.
Let me slow down and reevaluate. It's it's some people know, yeah, I want these things done. I want these things changed, and you know, there was an extent to which I think when I first started coming out, I was like, well, these are the steps that you need to take, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then once I got past the stage of panicking and got to the stage of, okay, I've dealt with coming out to people. I figured out what I'm doing with my name. I figured out the legal stuff with that and figured out, how to deal with my the beginnings of my medical transition. then I had more time to think about what the other steps were if I was going to do anything or not.
Mm.
Um, and there's things I still want to do at some point, and I just haven't got around to it yet. But yeah, I mean, sometimes things change, and you don't necessarily end up where you think you're going to be at the beginning.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes things are easier than you would think they would be. And sometimes what you expect to be doing is not where you ultimately feel you need to go. And that's kind of what happened with me. Is I realized, like, okay, that path doesn't necessarily fit me.
Mhm.
So let me reevaluate and take a step and slow down because it's not a race.
Mhm. Well, that's why I love to ask that question and get that answer is, we like to normalize here that it's a journey and it's your
Mhm.
journey. It's specific to you. Yeah, there's like a sort of a roadmap of all the things you could do, and a lot of people have that as their goal. But if that moves, if that shifts, if you end up somewhere else, it's all okay. It's all valid. It's finding the journey and the steps that are right for you and following what's
Yeah,
right for you. And when something doesn't fit, choose a different path, go a different way.
yeah, yeah. It's my favorite line that, and I don't know where I first heard it, but I've heard many people use it before, and I use it all the time. Your mileage may vary, and it's not a one size fits all kind of uh, process.
A two-parter here. What
Ooh.
forms of dysphoria do you struggle with? And in that, how do you find in your day-to-day validity in your identity? How do you find Shannon in your day-to-day?
Um, those are two good questions. Um, a lot of my dysphoria is some of the common things. Um, I don't, and I don't actually have as much bottom dysphoria as I thought I was going to. Um, and kind of what I thought I should have. And that's one of the surgeries that I said, hold on a second. Um, it's just more sometimes things are in the way more than anything else.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not something that I'm in a rush to deal with. Um, my biggest things that I deal with on a daily basis is just kind of like everything going on around my head. Um, you know, if you have seen me online, you've seen this hairband. There's a reason I wear a hairband every day. Um, I was very fortunate that all of this was still there. But when I before I started transitioning, I had a very healthy denial beard, and I said, just my hair has just migrated from right here down my face. Um, so I mean that is kind of my biggest thing, and it drives me crazy. Um, and some of what has migrated down my face is still there because I also haven't dealt with that yet. Um, and so, uh, you know, uh, and then also my voice. My voice is not where it was once upon a time, but you know, at some point, I came to the conclusion that my voice is my voice. I'm okay with my voice. Um, I thought about having vocal surgery, and I'm like, that's terrifying. But that was me. Some people that's their path. Um, and you know, a lot of things I'm just as time went on, I got more comfortable with. And this is my voice. And I kind of work on it little by little all the time, and it is what it is.
Hmm.
Um, I have very much enjoyed um not so much there being a pandemic, but the pandemic fashion is very helpful. Um, with having to deal with uh the shadow.
Yes. I love
So
that I don't have to put all the makeup on to present as a woman in public. Isn't it amazing?
it's delightful. I had a doctor's appointment this morning. Um, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not doing my makeup and rushing to get to this doctor's appointment in the morning, and then putting a mask on and messing up my makeup and then having to redo my makeup before I go on the show." So I I put my mask on because I had to wear it to the doctor's office anyway, and I threw a scarf around my neck, and I looked fantastic. So there's ways of dealing with it, and honestly, it's similar to like when I first um and almost on the other end of the spectrum when I first was transitioning before I came out to everybody else. I would present, you know, at home, and that kind of meant, you know, getting myself nice and gussied up and wearing makeup and putting that wig on, and because I was really trying to fight to see myself in the mirror every day.
Yeah.
Um, and now I'm at the point that like I'm like, "Ugh, I gotta put makeup on to go somewhere. All right." And most of the time I've gotten to the point where I'm just like Rachel, and I walk in the house. I'm like, get this bra off of me, you know, and I'm like, oh god, I got to take this makeup off. All right, it's most of the time I look, like a wreck, and I'm perfectly happy, uh, sitting at home looking, not presentable to the rest of the world, and that's fine. And I'm comfortable, and that's authentically me,
Yeah.
uh, at home.
That's
Yeah,
a
I'm not
really
trying to
great
impress
point.
anybody.
That's a great point to get to in your transition where you're just like sitting on the couch, the slubbiest clothes you can find, um, 2 days worth of shadow on your face, just like I'm good. And but the point of that is to say that still feeling like a woman, still feeling like you
Yeah,
really, even though the outside it's just looking like a trash fire. Like it's you still feel like you. Whereas early on, you fight so hard to find any glimpse of your female self in the mirror or in yourself. And so it's just a great place to get to where you're like, I can really let it go. And I still feel like Emily. I still feel like
yeah.
me. It's a great place to get to. What do you feel that you've been able to accomplish because of your transition?
Hmm. Worse than the ethereal question. What have I been able to accomplish? I think that I am a much more confident person than I used to be. Um, I would never do this. I would never be on a live show, you know, 5, 6 years ago. Um, I could throw together a YouTube video, no problem, but, I could control and edit that and I wouldn't have to worry about it. Um, but, I am much more confident in, um, kind of putting myself out there, um, and not just about, pardon, myself as a trans woman, but it's allowed me to be more confident to just kind of express myself in the world and what I think and what I feel. And um, I mean, maybe to the point that like, you know, people are like, "Oh my god, will you shut up with your opinions?" But I am very much I'm much more comfortable letting the world know what's going on in here,
Hmm.
um,
Do you feel that
than I
some of
was
that is
before.
because your perspective after transition, your perspective of consequences has shifted? Like the world, like there doesn't seem to be as much danger or kind of fear of things. You're like, well, I made it through transition. Nothing can hurt me now.
Um, I don't know. I mean, yes and no. Because on the one hand, um, I yes, because I have more confidence and I feel more um comfortable and I feel a little braver in that I've done this really hard thing. Um, but at the same time, um, I am a very um I'm a very white presenting biracial woman. But and in that I kind of grew up knowing that I had a bit of privilege in moving through the world. In coming out, I lost a lot of that because I to a lot of people in the world, I no longer appeared to their eye as a kind of tan, but I think white cis man. And so on the other, yes, I'm more confident and braver, but I also, have an additional bit of I look at the world and go, "Oh, that's scary." And and now I'm brave and I feel more confident putting myself out there and I see things that I need to scream at and need to point out to people that this is not okay. This is not okay. And uh I'm likable, so maybe you'll listen to me. And let me let me yell about that for a little while and hopefully that gets at least somebody to think about it.
Hmm.
So
I love
yes,
that.
I am braver. I feel, more confident and things aren't as scary in some ways and in other ways things are more scary. Um, and after thinking about them for a long time, I have decided that I need to fight them. So um so yeah, yes and no.
Another, probably the last really tough question, and then
Okay.
we'll ask the last one and take our
Hit me.
break. What is your
Okay.
favorite thing that you've learned as you've moved through your journey?
My favorite thing that I've learned. Um hmm.
Either about the world or yourself,
You seem I've
family,
learned things.
relationships. There's a lot to rethink once you come out.
I think that the biggest thing, and I don't maybe it's my favorite thing, is people are don't know as much as they think they do. But a lot of people are more willing to learn than you might give them credit for. Um, that's not always the case, but um, I think that the my favorite thing that I've learned is that I don't know everything, and there's always something else that I'm learning. Um, and I know that, and in knowing that, um, I realize that everybody else, I don't know what I'm doing, and neither does everybody else. So I always have an opportunity to learn, and realizing that um, there's always something more interesting out there for me to figure out.
Hmm.
Everybody else is kind of having a similar experience, so you know, there's always something out there that's exciting that you didn't know yesterday to learn.
I feel that that helps give us patience with both ourselves and the world around us, as far as like
Yes,
accepting and making the right decisions with, as we go through our journeys.
yeah, and I'm not by nature a patient person, so it's helpful to to learn how to practice that.
As we wrap up this section, the most important question I like to ask everybody: what is some advice that you have for young or closeted trans folks out there?
Um, breathe. Um, it the world seems scary. What you're going through seems scary. Um, but breathe. Take your time, center yourself. Um, there's always somebody out there um, to help. And sometimes um, it's very easy to kind of get consumed by the scary things. Um, and a lot of people have heard the Mr. Rogers quote of, always look for the helpers. And it's true. There's always somebody out there, and maybe they're far away. Um, but there's always somebody out there that will understand you, that will help you. Um, so when you're feeling like everything's kind of closing, just breathe.
I love that. Great advice. Yeah. Center yourself, relax.
Yeah,
You're going to be okay.
I have to remind myself that a lot. But yeah,
Absolutely. All right. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Shannon, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing so much of your story. We really appreciate all of that.
thank you for having me. I'm actually enjoying this a lot more than I thought I was. I was very scared, and I had to remind myself to breathe. It's going to be okay.
There you go. Yeah. The advice you have for other people is good advice for yourself. I love it.